word means.
A defense.
Okay? Of what?
A defense of divine things like the existence of God, cause and effect, design, and a boatload of other things that relate to that.
Exactly. Giving a defense of our beliefs, and depending upon what that subject is, that's what we're going to give a defense of. And a lot of it, as we all know, the world does not believe in, but these, also refer to them as Christian evidences, are found in God's holy word. Remember, faith is based upon God's holy word, and it's never been proven to be wrong. We should always be prepared to give an answer to everyone that asketh us the reason of the hope that is in us with meekness and fear. 1 Peter 3:15. In our last class, we took a look at archaeology. You should have been here. You would have enjoyed it. Archaeology down through the ages has proven the Bible always correct. Actually, if you think about it, it's the Bible itself, God's holy word, which proves everything that's in it is correct. But archaeology goes right along and agrees with it. You have only 3 questions that you can ask and then no more. So be careful.
Use the Bible to find archaeological sites a lot of times.
I can't hear you. People are laughing.
Use the Bible as a guidebook to find archaeological sites roughly, and sometimes the civilization that's in the general area.
Now see, if you had waited, I was going to say that. You only get 2 more. You ruined the first one. It is interesting, as Dale says, how these individuals who are archaeologists, who probably are agnostic, not necessarily atheists, they just don't think about God at all, that they'll actually, looking for a site where a city or a town was but doesn't exist anymore, they'll look at the scriptures to find out, to narrow it down, where this city or this village existed. Now, why do they do that?
Makes things easier.
It's accurate, and they know that, and yet they still aren't. They don't believe it. They're not convinced. I just don't get it. A lot of the Christian evidences deals with the creation and everything that is in it. Evolutionists, of course, reject it as unscientific, though the Bible's explanation is more scientific than the evolutionists. And some of these scientists over the years have come away with thinking that exact thing. They're starting to turn, and they have for years, turning their backs upon evolution and that theory and accepting that there had to be a creator. But I thought it would be interesting to notice what the definition of science is. Webster defines science as the knowledge or a system of knowledge covering general truths or the operation of general laws, especially as obtained and tested through scientific method. That's a good definition. But notice that last part. According to Webster's, the operation, according to science, things that they start to believe that this is really true, it is something that's been tested numerous times, and then it has been shown to be proof through all those testings, but also it is something that keeps on repeating itself. Evolution does neither one of those things. And they're coming to that conclusion. For example, gravity. Gravity's always been there. There are people who discovered it or thought they discovered it down through the years, going as far back as Aristotle and other individuals that we've never even heard of. Things that are lighter than air, what do? No, lighter than air, they float. They float. Things that are heavier than air, then they fall. Isaac Newton worked on that, but there were people who believed in it long before. Earth rotating around the sun. At one period of time, even according to Catholic doctrine, it was the sun that rotated around the earth. But there were people like Copernicus and others who were able to prove that the earth actually did rotate around the sun. With evolution, you could say not being specific, what is it then? If science is not involved in evolution, that theory, what is it? Any ideas? Any guesses? How about philosophy?
How about speculation?
Well, that too. But most of them think of it as philosophy. What is that? It's an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths about themselves and the world around them. That's philosophy. What were the Athenians in Paul's day? What did they love to do? They were philosophers. All the time. That's all they did throughout the day, was dream up and think about these things. Well, that's philosophy. There's a huge difference between philosophy and science. And a lot of these individuals want to be scientists, so-called, want to be philosophers, so they do not mesh. Science is based upon facts that have been proven to be facts and continue to repeat themselves.
All positivity about science, falsely so-called.
Exactly. Oh, that's two. Just one more. Be careful. Evolution teaches that man and everything in it evolved from lower forms of life over a period of millions of years. What's wrong with that? Before I answer that, that's three. Millions of years isn't enough for him anymore, though. To come up with this evolutionist theory or hypothesis, millions of years is not enough. For everything to evolve, it had to be billions of years. What does the Bible teach? Every day he was creating something. In 6 days he created everything. And he created everything mature, fully grown. Man, including the earth. So when they think about the earth being, well, billions of years old, it's not. It's really not that old at all. It's thousands of years old, but it's not millions and it's not billions.
But it would appear it went through that process.
It would appear, because everything was full grown.
Yeah, but they still haven't disproved Robert Andrew. Showed the radio halos were going in 318 in the granite all across the world, and they can't disprove it.
No.
And it's but they just ignore it.
Yeah. Well, of course they do.
They still use trying to destroy
That's no more. You cut off. Geology, for example, continues to prove that the evolutionary process that they believe in is false. The dating processes that they have used have proven over and over again completely wrong, completely off the scale. So they've got a lot of holes. They talk about Christianity as you have to take a leap of faith. Actually, we don't. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. The evidence, it says, of things that we haven't seen, but there's evidence that it existed, still exists, still takes place. It's the evolutionist that really has to take of faith to try and prove it. There's so many gaps, there's so many theories, there's so many missing links. There was a time where they used to teach spontaneous generation. Now he's going to ask Carl to ask the questions for him. I know what's going on. What is spontaneous generation, if you remember this from growing up? They don't talk about it anymore, but they did at one time. No answers? Life sprung from dead matter. Okay, is that science? No. Why is it not science?
Can't be true.
Can't be true. Science is also something that's been tested down through the years to prove that it's true. It's repeatable. They can't prove it. They don't talk about it anymore because they've been proven wrong in that area. Matter of fact, you ever hear of a fellow called Louis Pasteur? He tested it. He found out you had a piece of dead flesh, dead matter, and you covered it over so no flies could get into it. It stayed dead. Proven to be a fact. Back in the 60s and 70s, if you could remember back in those dark ages, another thing that was so popular was the missing link. What's that?
Philosophy and name the seed.
What's that now?
Philosophy and name the seed, Colossians 2:8.
Basically it is, they had skeletons, ancient skeletons of monkeys, of apes, and of human beings. What they were looking for was something in between, something pre-human, basically an ape man. It was developing somewhere in between it. Guess what? It's still missing. They've never found it, and they understand now that they never will. Another thing about evolution, this process would have to continue going on, wouldn't it? How come we don't see apes or chimpanzees turning into men? What happened? According to their doctrine.
How come we don't have men with giraffe's heads? Ostrich necks?
Your limit is up. Louis Leakey. You ever hear of Louis Leakey? Very popular. He spent a lifetime trying to prove that man evolved from apes. In a discussion one time at a convention, he admitted this: there's no one link missing. There are hundreds of links missing. Charles Darwin, he stated this about the missing links, that it is the most obvious and serious objection against evolution, because they weren't able to prove their theory. And actually, I have a hard time calling evolution a theory, because theories are at least based on some facts, some truths. Evolution is not. It's based upon what man wants it to be, what they believe it. Now you're getting back into philosophy. And simply just a rejection of God. That's why people choose evolution in a nutshell. Any questions, any comments? Even Dale.
Leonardo Fambinesi, seed counts and tree limb clockwise, limbs growing out around a sequoia or redwood, a bristlecone pine. They're based on math. And math is 1 + 1 = 2, next is 3, next is 5, next is 8, next is 13, next is 21, then 34, 55, 89. The Nebuchadnezzar's flower garden for his bride was based on Fibonacci numbers. The trees, the bushes, the herbs, the seed counts, and watermelons, and every other fruit. They're all arithmetic based.
Well, they are.
That can't be coincidental.
No,
No way.
of course not. Why do people believe in evolution then?
You want to believe in God?
They don't want to believe in God. Could it also be because they were taught it in elementary school, they were taught it in middle school, they were taught it in high school, they're taught it in colleges, and they didn't use their own brain to find out what they were being taught was the truth? It happens in religion all the time. A lot of people choose not to think. They choose not to study, to find out, okay, professor, is this really true? They don't do it. Study's hard work. Brother,
One thing they're not allowed to do is question.
no, not allowed to question. Some people don't believe in the creation because they don't want to. They don't want to believe in God because if there is no God, then there really is no morals. There's no right or wrong. So they can live their life any way that they want to live it. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God, Psalm 14:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork, Psalm 19:1. His work is by his hands. He made it. There are a number of reasons based on evidence supported by facts that Genesis chapter 1 is correct. You understand why the book of Genesis has been attacked more than any other book in the Bible. And especially chapter 1 and chapter 1 through 11 or 10. If they can undermine the foundation of all of the Bible, then the rest of it collapses. They never have. They never will. The human body is without a doubt more of an intricate, amazing form of life than we probably even think. We don't even realize how much it is. And they will say that it was simply an accident. You and I are just a hank of hair and a sack of flesh.
The stomas and the rear leaves and the synapses and alveoli and the lungs match each other like a mirror.
Okay, that's number 73. That you're way past it. Next time we're going to have to ask you to leave the room. Think about our bodies. You ever think about how valuable, how important, how intricate the human eye actually is? We probably don't think about it as much as we should. And to think that it's just happen chance, it's just an accident, that it just evolved this way over trillions of years. It doesn't have to be trillion for the eye. Billion, just not enough. Alan L. Gillen, I don't know if you ever heard of this individual's name. He is a biologist, a zoologist with a doctorate in science education. He has written a number of books that deal with the evidence of the creation and everything in it through the biblical process. He doesn't go the evolutionist route. One of the books that he wrote, and I wish we had it in the library, is a book called Body by Design, where he discusses the human eye. Now, these are some of the things that he mentioned. He said the most amazing component of the eye is the film, which is the retina. Sometimes we may think the retina is right up front. Actually, it's in the back. He said this light-sensitive layer at the back of the eyeball is thinner than a sheet of plastic wrap and is more sensitive than any man-made film. He said the best camera film can handle a ratio of 1,000 to 1 photons in terms of light intensity. Well, what's photon? Photon is the smallest piece of light energy. The smallest piece of light there is. It is the building block of all light, like a single particle of light that makes up a beam of light. So this is the smallest bit of light there is that man knows about at this time. So, according to the best camera, it has a ratio of 1,000 to 1 photons. The human eye can handle a ratio of 10 billion to 1 over that dynamic range of light wavelengths. We can go into a room that is completely dark. You can't even see the hand in front of your face, but there's this one little speck of light, that photon, the eye will pick it up. When we go out of our homes or our offices and we're not wearing shades, sunglasses, and the sun is beating down, what do? What's the first thing that we do? Yeah, cover our eyes. You know what? You're too late. The eye has already done that process for us. We're reacting to it. But that human eye is able to bleach out that sun to make it bearable. Nope, no more. You're fired. You remember this glassware that came out a number of years ago? It was for reading, just regular glasses, but when you stepped outside, what would it do? It'd be like sunglasses. It would turn dark. That's what the eye does. Our eyes do all that because God created it. They say it does all these things out of a freak of nature. Charles Darwin, writer of The Origin of the Species. By the way, he did not start evolution. He's the one that made it popular. But there was others for a long time who believed in it. Speaking about the human eye, Darwin wrote, "To suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances," we do it all the time, "for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest sense." He didn't have an answer for it. Evolutionists do not. Anybody hear of a fellow called Robert Jastrow? Who is he? Well, okay. You're honest. One of the smartest men probably ever to live as far as what's above us. He did a lot of work in a number of well-known colleges. He did a lot of work as far as the moon landings. I know some people don't believe in it. Nothing we can do about that. But so he's very intelligent. He was also agnostic. He accepted evolution. But toward the end of his life, he realized, no, that's not working anymore. He actually came to the conclusion, even though he was an agnostic, that there actually had to be a creator. And speaking about the eye, he stated, "The eye is a marvelous instrument resembling a telescope of the highest quality, with a lens, an adjustable focus, a variable diaphragm for controlling the amount of light, and optical corrections. The eye appears to have been designed. No designer of telescopes could have done better. How could this marvelous instrument have evolved by chance through a succession of random events?" Well, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. You know, verse 26 talks about how God gave man dominion over everything. Evolutionists don't have an answer for that one either. And yet there it is, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. God gave man dominion. For years, scientists have compared the human eye to a great camera, but no camera ever came close to the human eye. And we know when we see a camera or we see a watch, someone had to create it. But when it comes to humans, no, God didn't have anything to do with that. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Jasper also realized the origin of the universe was not in the realm of science. Science did not have an answer for it. That's what he thought. He believed it had to be a creator. That science itself did not have an answer for the creation, for the beginning. And listening to him, and you can get on YouTube and you can find some of his sayings, his speeches. Very interesting. He talked about the Big Bang Theory. And he talked about how scientists were able to take these planets in the universe and trace their way all the way back to that moment in time where there was that explosion. How all these planets started from. Now, what is interesting, according to him, he says science is able to actually prove that. What he meant was science was able to prove that they had a beginning. Do you agree with that? Okay. That's his point. But to believe that, he had to come to the conclusion, although he was agnostic, that someone had to light that fuse for that bang. In other words, he had a hard time accepting it. But he came to the realization that there was a creator. He didn't know who the creator was. But someone had to create all this, and basically, when the scientists came up with that theory, they basically painted themselves into a corner that they could not get out of. No.
Okay.
No. We're going to have to go. If we have time, we'll come back to you. Every house is builded by some man, but he that built all things, who? Who did it? God. Hebrews 3:4. And since it is so supremely created, it had to have had a supreme creator. The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord hath made even both of them. Proverbs 20:12. Okay, quickly.
Trillions or billions at least of butterflies and flies all have micro lenses that orient with the ultraviolet light of the earth, and the design of one in the laboratory is unimaginable. It's beyond human
They can't do it.
imagination, let alone actually looking at it through a microscope, ATM microscope or electron microscope.
They have no answer for it.
No.
No.
And there's clouds of them that fly by the millions, thousands and millions in the sky, and they're all designed.
The human ear. There's another thing. The human ear. We've all heard that catchphrase, can you hear me now? But it takes more than a good cell phone and good cell coverage. It takes someone, God, who created it. By the way, the human ear, and the eye for that also goes along with the second law of thermodynamics. What is that? Yeah. Our very selves prove that thing. Things wear down. They will break down. Our eyesight is breaking down. Our hearing, mine's been breaking down for years. Some of you, it's been broke for a long time. But that's that second law of thermodynamics, and you can't do anything with it. We're getting older. The ear has three parts. There's the outer, there's the middle, and there's the inner ear. And that process of hearing begins with actually what they call vibrations in the air. That's how they term it. What we're hearing, they're vibrations. These vibrations are captured and enhanced by the outer ear and sent to the eardrum, where they are amplified and sent to the inner ear. And that's the key part there. Then that's sent to the brain, and the brain will tell us, oh, that was a bird. Or that was Carl talking. Or that's the person behind you honking his horn because the light's green and not red anymore. That's what you're hearing. So the inner ear carries the most critical part of the mechanisms of hearing. Science states that there are tiny hairs, and I don't mean the ones that are growing out of our ears. That's another one. But tiny hairs which produce electrical signals which are then sent to the brain. Think of these sound waves hitting the human ear, and there are around 25,000 receptors for what has come into the ear, sending the waves to the brain so it'll tell us what we've heard. In order for the ear to function, each three of these components must be working. If even one breaks down, it's called hearing loss. That's what happens. Now, could all of this have just taken place by accident, by happen chance over millions or billions of years? I think that would be stupid to believe that. It makes absolutely no sense to believe in something like that. But if God's brought into the equation, no, that's wrong. People are so ready to reject God that they'll believe in anything. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works. Psalm 139:14. The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord hath made even both of them. Proverbs 20:12. These are a couple members of our body that the evolutionist has no answer to. What is one of the most strongest structures that you can think of? People might think of cement. People might think of steel.
Yeah.
Diamonds. How about our own skeleton? Our bones. We don't think of it that way. Bone strength. A cubic inch of bones can support a load of 19,000 pounds.
The Eiffel Tower was designed about the bone.
I would not try this at home, by the way. That is about the weight of 5 pickup trucks. The bone can support that. And it's just by happen chance. This is 4 times stronger than concrete of the same weight. That's how God made us. Since we have time, that's powerful. Yeah. What about that 8 man? What about that missing link? You don't hear about it too much anymore. They don't drag that up anymore.
The neck of the ape and the human are totally different.
Absolutely.
Totally different.
Although there are some similarities, but what does that prove? Does that prove evolution, or does it prove that both had the same creator? No, same creator. Evolution could never prove why apes were not continuing to evolve into man, into a higher form of life. It's not testable. It's not repeatable. But it makes sense. If evolution is correct, we should still see these changes to this very day. They've never come about. But man over the years has tried to prove through discoveries of ancient skeletons. Here's the missing link. You remember Neanderthal man. By the way, there is no cavemen. There was people who lived in caves, still today. But when God created Adam and Eve, they were able to speak. Neanderthal man was supposed to be part ape and part human, in other words, subhuman. They discovered this skeleton, and this is what they were trying to prove, but through more search, discovery, even science, they realized, no, this is just a human being. And they have proven over the years that something was either human or it was an animal. It wasn't pre-human. Sometimes the deficiencies in the body, possibly because of diet, cause some changes and cause some to believe that at one time this was part ape. We found it. No, it's one or the other. They have some mutations. And generally, mutations are thought to be not good. Not good at all, but there are mutations. You remember Lucy? And I don't mean I love Lucy, but Lucy. Lucy was discovered by Richard Leakey back in 1974. Richard Leakey was the son of Louis Leakey. He was an anthropologist. He labeled Lucy as Australopithecus. Say that 3 times real quick. We learned this back in Bible class on Wednesday nights, back in the 70s, preparing us for high school and evolution being taught. This was supposed to be, this Australopithecus was supposed to be that in between a man and an ape. They were able to show it. They had one really big problem. The skull of this animal was barely there. Most of it was missing. So they had to create it, and this is what they do, in their image. How they want it to look, like between an animal and an ape. In the discussion, Leakey himself stated that Lucy's skull is so incomplete that much of it is imagination made of plaster of Paris. So he come to the conclusion that this was a form of maybe some monkey or some ape that they had never discovered before. But it wasn't man. Not even close. Now, this one I was saving for last. It is called Nebraska Man. Now, don't pick on them after this class is over. This is something that they have done over the years. Different skeletons that they would put together in an image that they wanted. Oh, here's the image between a man and an ape. And it wasn't that at all. Well, here's this fella in Nebraska, in excavating. He found a tooth. And he believed, here's proof. Here's the missing link. So he sent it off for study, and a lot of people bought into it. And they were able to make a skeleton just from this one tooth, in the form that they wanted it to be created. And you can't help but think, if they had a tooth that they were able to create a whole skeleton, what if they'd had a jawbone? They could have created a whole city. Well, it went up the chain of command, and they discovered something more about this tooth. It actually came from an ancient peccary. What in the world is that? Well, I'm glad that you asked. It is an ancient, extinct pig. That's what it was. It came from a pig. It did not come from a man at all. And yet it was touted as the missing link.
You ever heard of a monkey being confused by what is called the monkey puzzle tree? They
No.
can't even figure out how to climb it. It's a giant tree. It's an amazing tree.
Yeah.
Monkey puzzle tree.
Okay. But none of these finds have ever proven the missing link at all. All have been found to be either human or non-human. Even like that Australopithecus, it was proven that wasn't an animal, it was an ancient one that they had never discovered before, that it actually existed, and they're still doing that today. But it wasn't an ape man in the process. Any questions, comments before we close?
Compare a monkey puzzle tree to a magnolia tree, and they're both amazing.
Okay.
Incredible.
Anything else? Not a few minutes. Carl?
You're doing a fine job. Keep that.
Well, what does this tell us, though? I mean, we've had 3 classes on apologetics, these Christian evidences. Have they ever proven the Bible wrong? And yet they continue to try to do that.
William Ramsey is a good example of refuting the Bible was incorrect in the book of Acts and Luke. William Ramsey wrote a book.
We talked about that. Well, you weren't here. You know, the archaeologist, Sir William Ramsey, he was knighted, a great archaeologist, but he set out to go through the Holy Land, Paul's missionary journeys, to prove that there's no way Luke could have had all these cities correct. And there are thousands, hundreds of these cities, these islands, and individuals who actually lived during those missionary journeys. And he came around with the idea, after a number of years of study, that Luke was actually a first-rate archaeologist. So when it says that someone went down from a city to go somewhere else, you are actually going down, or coming up. You're actually coming up.
Was the man that discovered the pass in the sea?
Yes.
Before that time, nobody knew of such.
No.
And his son was reading the Bible to him, and he
Right.
said, read that again.
Yeah.
I said it somewhere, let's go find it. And that's how he found the Gulf Stream.
Yeah.
And all the things that they talk about now on weather.
That were always there.
They were always there. but nobody knew.
I think his last name was Maury. He is basically the father of oceanography. You know, that's what he's think of. Good class. Thank you for all your comments.